If I can have your attention, please. We had our business meeting at 6:30, and then we recessed until 7 o'clock, so we were able to finish our business meeting beforehand. We're going to open this up for public input. This is a little different than meetings that we've had prior to this, in that it's the monthly town board meeting. So we'll open it up to public input. Those will be limited to 2 minutes per person. And then we'll have a presentation by Vista Sand. And then there'll be some dialogue between the board and Vista. But according to state statutes, we can only have one segment of public input, so it's not an open forum where anybody is able to just talk when they feel would like to. So at this time, I'm going to open it up. If anybody has a comment or a question, they can come up and use the microphone so everybody can hear them. There is a sign-up sheet in the back that we would like everybody to sign in where your name and address. And so, but we will limit you to 2 minutes, but when you do get up, we'd like you to give your name and address also. And we do limit that to one 2-minute session per person.
My name is Mary Walker. I live in Glenwood Township. I have a question about the 2-minute limit for someone to speak. Is that just your rule? Is that written in the township laws somewhere? What is that?
Yes.
And I do have another question.
That is an
later
option.
down.
That is an
All right.
option. That is open to the town board to limit the amount of time for public input.
Okay, is this my only time to speak?
If you have a question, you can ask the question.
Okay, I have a question. I haven't lived here but about 5 years, and I have a problem remembering the name of the roads and all of that. 128 runs right by my house. I'd like to know, I think you said at another meeting sometime that you had driven the route and you had looked at it. Is that, do I remember that correctly? And you drove it?
Not me.
Not you?
No.
You didn't drive it?
No.
So you haven't seen how close the houses are to the road? You haven't driven the thing to see where these 80,000-pound trucks are going to go?
Well, I've lived here my whole life, and I do know where the route is, and I am familiar with the route, but I haven't specifically driven it just for that purpose.
Okay, because I'm not familiar, because I'm not familiar with the roads, can you tell me the route? Again, can you tell me what is it a proposed route? I mean, it's not settled yet because they're not approved yet, right?
Yes, that is correct. It's a proposed route, okay, and the town board simply makes recommendations to the Board of Adjustments, St. Clair County Board of Adjustments. Vista Sand works with the State Department of Transportation. Okay, and so that's not our discretion as to what the route is. The route will go through Downing to Boyceville, go down 79 to 12.
Okay, wait, is 79 the road that leaves Boyceville?
Correct.
And if you follow it, you get to a railroad track crossing.
Correct.
And you stop, and if you turn left, you go into Menominee?
Menominee.
Okay, I gotcha.
So they'll turn right.
Turn right.
And I'm not real familiar, it's near Highway K, where they'll have the sand loading facility, and then where they'll put it on the rail.
But it's close to 12, yes?
Correct.
I mean, right next to it or something?
Correct.
Okay.
And then when they're empty, they'll go back up 12 to 128 and come back around to G.
Okay. All right, I gotcha. Thank
Okay.
you. You didn't drive it? I swear, I thought you said you drove it. Maybe you should. And look at how close the houses are. Maybe you should drive that.
Okay, anyone else have a comment or a question?
My name's Jim Laskin. I live on Rustic Road 4. In the next few hours, the three people at the front of this room will make a decision more consequential than any in generations, whose effects will be with us for the rest of our lives and our children's lives. Since the last Glenwood town meeting, we have learned that the Department of Natural Resources, charged with much of the oversight of the proposed open pit silica sand mine and its processing plant, have neither the employees nor the equipment to do either. We have been told by the Department of Health that they too have neither the people nor the equipment to monitor open pit silica sand mines, but they have many concerns for both air and water pollution from them. We are told by the mine's proponents that we have nothing to fear from the use of flocculent chemicals in the processing plants, settling ponds, even though many such chemicals are known neurotoxins, and the case after case of leaking sand mine ponds have come to light. And all of this next to 1,500 people in Glenwood City and down in Wisconsin who depend on the water directly under these ponds for their water every day. We have learned that the National Institute of Health and Safety has just put out a hazard alert for silica sand dust, specifically targeting the frac sand industry. Due to the dramatic increase of sand use and an exposure to unhealthy levels of silica dust in the environment, we propose to put a silica sand mine next to a kindergarten. And we learned that the land values decline around industrial silica sand mines, about 30% near the mine, and about 5% 5 miles out from the mine, which includes just about everyone who lives in Glenwood City and down in Wisconsin. And we learned that between the currently operating Downing sand mine and the soon-to-open Wilson sand mine and the proposed Vista sand mine, 240,000 semi-trucks will be added to our roads every year. And they will all meet at the intersection of Highway 12 and 128 during mine business hours, every 42.5 seconds. During morning and evening commuting hours, during spring planting and fall harvest, Monday through Friday, and all of what is currently one of the more dangerous intersections in all of St. Croix County. And in the next few hours, 3 people will help make a decision that will affect all of us. Once the permits are granted, there is no going back, no undoing the damage, no making everything better with, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." Thank you.
Anyone else?
A question about the intersection at 128 and 12.
Your name, please.
Oh, my name is Cheryl Merrill, from Menominee, Wisconsin. At one of the meetings, it was presented that the new trucks that Vista's buying will be getting their gas at Quick Trip. So that tells me that they're not just making right-hand turns, they're going to make left-hand turns. Another question that I have, well, first of all, is that fact? And where the trucks are going to be parked? At another meeting, it was also stated that it would be land on that corner. And it would be interesting to me to know if there's anyone else who has any vested interest in that. And I applaud you. And once again, Dunn County has not signed on to a spur. Do not connect us. Don't connect those dots yet, people, because we haven't signed on. I don't necessarily know that we're going to sign on, so you don't have to.
Good for you.
I'm Jim Burritt from Tanner Township. So I'm concerned about this development for a number of reasons. Mostly I'm concerned about the water and air quality. I think there are a lot of things that we need to be worried about. There are a lot of questions we need to ask. I've focused on a few of them myself. I really tried to learn more about them. I've tried to find out what the mechanism will be to suppress dust that, that we're all concerned about. So when you talk to us tonight, please let us know what the mechanism will be to suppress dust and reduce the exposure to the people. I'm also interested in where do the people in Downing get water? Where do you get water? Well, so is it a municipal well? Is there a city well? So everybody has their own wells? Okay. So I'm very concerned about the direction of groundwater flow. I'm assuming that this must be studied, or it has been studied. From the wet plant, which way does the groundwater flow? Whose wells are at risk? How much do we know about what can happen to the groundwater? Does the groundwater become acidified if it's exposed to the flocculants? If it is acidified, what is liberated into the groundwater? What's the residual amount of acrylamide in the polyacrylamide that is planned to be used as a flocculant? I'm telling you, I've studied this. I have a PhD in microbiology. I've worked with other people. There is a lot we do not know about this. So, board members, we need you to protect our best interests tonight. There's a lot at stake. Thank you.
Ask. Ask if the ponds will be lined.
My name is Ryan Lipke. I live in Glenwood Township, north of Glenwood. Just a couple things. I support the sand mine for a number of reasons. They're going to bring jobs to the community for one, which we don't have a lot of. A lot of people are out of work. I think the concerns about the health effects are overblown at best. I don't think I've seen any evidence. I've read the DNR study, and I'm not seeing these big health concerns. Unless somebody can show me evidence. Another thing, I've known the Tigans for a long time. I don't think they're going to do business with some fly-by-night company. They wouldn't do that to the community. They've never demonstrated anything like that I'm aware of the whole time I've known them. So overall, I support the sand mine. I think it's a good thing for the community.
Hi, I'm Alex Blackburn from St. Croix County Zoning. Myself and the Land and Water Conservation Department, we reviewed the application for the Vista sand mine. After we reviewed it, we needed a lot more information. So SEH Incorporated, who's the consulting engineer, has decided to withdraw their application and will not be on the July 26th Board of Adjustment agenda. They will be getting the additional required information to us, and we anticipate that this request will be on a future agenda. Just make sure to check the official county paper, which is the Baldwin Bulletin, and we'll also put it in the Glenwood City paper for the public hearing notice. Plus all the adjoining landowners will get a letter too. But I just want everybody to know that it will not be on the agenda for the July 26th. It'll be on some future Board of Adjustment agenda when we get the additional information.
Your public hearing should be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pilar Gerasimo. I've attended a lot of these meetings. I'm the former town chairperson for the town of Lucas, so I'm familiar with the work that you guys do, and I appreciate how much hard work it is to serve on a board and do a good job, particularly when a huge issue like this comes before you. I've asked a lot of questions about this as a concerned citizen and as somebody who just, I fear for the future of our community in general, not just because of this particular mine, but the pace at which these mines and their associated infrastructure is moving in. I had a different kind of question this evening. The Northwest Regional Planning Commission released a little presentation that was dated June 27th, 2012. And there was something that Vista had mentioned in their presentation at the last meeting about their cost per ton for the sand. And I remember at the very first public meeting, they had talked about how they were going to try to get it as cheap as they could, and they wanted to rub two nickels together, and they really represented themselves as being thrifty. But they mentioned $25 a ton, I believe. And in the cost and profit segment of this Northwest Regional Planning Commission document, it talks about the costs of about $60 to $100 million to build a processing plant, mining for $50 a ton and selling it for $300 a ton. The average mine, they said, is about 1 million tons a year, 937,500. And they listed gross sales as about $281,250,000, which is a lot of money. But if they're mining for $50 a ton everywhere else, I guess I questioned why and how Vista was managing to get their costs down to half of that, and whether that was going to involve any cost cutting measures that might negatively affect, well, either the landowner, who's getting a cost per ton fee, I imagine, and the community, who I think deserves better than the cheapest possible solutions. So I'm hoping at the very least the additional time that we might have to investigate this will give us an opportunity to see just how it is that they're managing to operate outside of industry standards.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. Julian Bender, Glenwood City. It appears that, from my experience of this in the last 6 weeks, that the theme that comes through is assurances and reassurances from Vista Sand. Okay, that's what I'm hearing from people. Can you assure us air quality? Can you assure us of the water? So what I'm saying at this point is this. I think if Vista Sand's project goes through, whenever it goes through, they have an opportunity to break the mold in terms of how they plan on being a good neighbor. Okay? If they use the standard model, I'm thinking that we're not going to hear the reassurance and the assurances. Okay? There's an opportunity here for Vista Sand to come and say, okay, you have concerns about the quality of air. Here are the standards that we have for our employees. Here are the standards we will maintain around this mine, and this is how we're going to do it. Number two, you have concerns about the water. Here's what we believe are appropriate steps in terms of placing wells, and I've heard this from Mr. Sykes, and it's a good thing in the sense of trying to monitor these things. But it needs to be more clearly stated in a much more open and accessible manner. For instance, I would encourage Vista Mine to set up some kind of website for people to access. And you have your plans for groundwater, you have your plans for air. And people can look at that and say, you know, I think this is a good plan. For instance, do you need to have your wells tested in Downing before they start the process? And who should pay for that? Those are the kinds of things that would be very good from a public relations standpoint from Vista towards creating that bond of being a good neighbor. So I'm encouraged by the process and the fact that we've had so many people ask educated questions. I think we're off to a good start here, and I'd like to see Vista's Sand Mining Company step up to the plate in that regard. Thank you.
Well, he kind of touched on what I was going to say, but I think as a town board, especially if they pulled out, I don't see the need to vote on this tonight at all. I don't think it's going to hurt to find out the sand's not going anywhere, Vista's not going anywhere, Tigans aren't going anywhere. I don't know why we need to vote on this tonight if they've pulled their application process. And as the town board, I think your responsibility and one of your duties is to make sure that the people of the town are covered. To be honest, my property is really not going to be affected by this mine. But my friends and neighbors, their property is. Not only are they going to lose 30% of their value, some of these properties are going to be unsellable. How are you going to sell a property with trucks going by every 90 minutes? With all due respect, I don't believe there's going to be 150 trucks a day. It's probably going to be double that. That's 4 loads a day. They're taking 4 to 5 loads a day to Woodbury out of the Downing mine. I mean, let's be honest, they're going to get more than 150 loads a day. I just don't think that, you know, the town board is like the town of Menominee did. You need to make them accountable for drinking water, property values, air pollution. That's something we don't really have set in place at all. And I don't know if you guys have done that or if you plan to do that. Now that this is the opportunity to maybe abstain from voting tonight and give us some time, like we've been asking for, to reassure ourselves. Like Jim pointed out, the air quality, they're already saying that we shouldn't be doing this, or there's major warnings, and now we're going to put it next to the kindergarten in our schools, and they've already said that they don't have any plans on updating our infiltration system at the schools. So how are we supposed to be assured of this? John Stoffel from the DNR said the monitors in the mine are not picking up as much dust matter as they are outside the mine. That's exactly what, well, not word for word, but that's pretty much what he said. He says, because we can't believe it ourselves. So it's something we really need to look at, and I think this is our time to abstain from the vote for the night and gain a little more information and maybe set ourselves up so we can cover the people of the town of Glenwood so we all aren't hung out to dry.
My name is Jeannie Jeske, and I live on Rustic Road 4. I've been putting off speaking, but my heart tells me that I need to. This frac sand mine that Vista, when they told me about it at the other meeting, it does sound good if you do what you say you're going to do. But I'm sorry, I don't have faith in you yet. I love my neighbors. And I'm really afraid what's going to happen to our neighborhood. I love this community. And already, I feel what's happening. And it hasn't even happened yet. It's been rumored that we've been offered money. We have not, and we will not. The other thing was that I don't think questions are getting answered here, so I'm just going to throw it out here. We're all aware of the mine on W, and now this one is Vista. Rumor has it that there's, well, I rephrase that. Are there any other proposed mines in this area? And that really scares me again, because now we have it way over there, we have it right here, and the rumor has it that it's right over on the other side. So now we're going to be surrounded. Not saying that, because I don't know anything about the pollution with the DNR. I don't know. I'm not educated in that. So you say, whatever anybody says is just hearsay. But Vista, you better do what you say you're going to do if this goes through. Because I don't want to see this community go to hell. Thanks, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Joe. Gordy Cronk from Downing. I presently own 10 acres that could be turned into this sand mine. I see no problem with it. The only thing I can think that the town board should look at is possibly what if this sand mine fails down the road 2 or 3 years, 2 or 3 years from now. Is this going to be left wide open? The mining thing, just dump it back on the taxpayers and do nothing about it? Because I believe in 1981, this was presented with wells, or the test wells for the sand, and then all of a sudden the price of fuel went way down again, so it wasn't pursued any further. So that's my only concern, is what if this, they fail it? What's going to happen to the land that we do have? Is it going to be left wide open? The mining towers and all that, and the roads just dumped back on the township for us to fix. That's the only thing I got to say.
My name is John Strom from the town of Forest. There's been a lot of discussion on this kind of a topic, and I'd like to follow on what another questioner was asking. We already have a bunch of mines. We've heard about the impact of a lot of truck traffic that's so dense that will prevent people from crossing or probably even merging into traffic. Roads that are going to get 50 years of wear and tear in 2, and all the other negative issues that have been carefully discussed, including the loss of property values. By the way, I have a mine next door to me, so if anybody has any questions about what that's actually like, as opposed to what people are discussing, I'd be open to any questions that people have after. So my question is, this is what, the 4th or 5th mine in the area close by? And we get a rail spur in here, and we get 10 more mines. I wonder what the traffic and all the other negative aspects are going to look like in what's left of this community. Thank you.
My name's John Larson. I grew up in Downing, lived in this area all my life, lived in Glenwood City for the last 30 years. I've been mayor of Glenwood City for the last 5 years. I think lots of good questions have been asked back and forth, both directions. I think it definitely is going to impact this area. I can tell you that at the City Council's meeting last Monday, a motion was passed to request the Zoning Board of Adjustments to take more time to make their determination. I personally don't have any problem with it taking more time. However, and I also think that the health concerns and the traffic concerns are very valid concerns. But I have toured the mines. I have toured the Menominee mine. I toured it on a very windy day. And I will tell you that I didn't see any dust blowing. I will tell you that when I came home that night and sat on my back deck, there was far more dust blowing off the Little League field than there was blowing off that entire sand mine. I toured the trucking facility at Bloomer. that handles the trucking up in, for the mine in Bloomer. They have GPSs in all their trucks. They know where every truck is at every minute. They don't want traffic intersections congested because that cuts into their profit margin. They want the traffic intersections to be open. I mean, it's to their advantage to monitor their trucks. This company pushes a button, puts that cursor or their computer up on the truck number 51. It tells them exactly how fast that truck's going. It tells them everything. I think it can be done right. I'm not saying every mine does it right, but I think it can be done right. I know nothing about Vista Sands. I know nothing about any of these mining companies. I can tell you the day I was in Menominee, it was being done right. This area can definitely use the economic impact that these mines will provide. I've been hearing for 40 years how Glenwood City needs some industry, how the area needs some industry. This is an opportunity. I remember, I'm old enough to remember when 94 was built and the controversy that surrounded that, when the farmers' fields were cut in half and some of those farmers had to drive 5 miles to get to the back side of their fields, and how that just couldn't happen and what kind of government did we have. I also was living in Downing when the lagoon was first built back in about 1960 something. And I can remember my parents getting together with their neighbors and saying, how can they do that? How can anybody build this lagoon a half a mile west of Downing? The prevailing wind from the west, it's going to stink, it's going to smell, it's going to pollute Downing. That didn't happen. Valid concern, certainly bared some study, but I think it can be done right. It can be done right, and you know, what you gentlemen are charged with is trying, and I don't know how much authority you have to negotiate anything with the mining company, but some of these reassurances that the land will be reclaimed, that there will be a reclamation bond adequate to take care of any potential problems. We've heard from some folks here that there's been breaks in some dikes. There's been, we hear lots of things. We hear the worst of the worst. You can look at anything and you can find any kind of a mine, any kind of a manufacturing firm, and yes, things happen. Machines break, people are injured, people are killed. You fix that and you move on. This board, you're elected by the people to represent the people of Glenwood Township. You are given the task of doing what's best for Glenwood Township. Not for Menominee, not for other townships, for your townships. And I just look at the economic benefit that could come to the township and to the community, the entire area. And I think you're right. I think you folks are saying there's going to be more mines. There's going to be several more mines. You might stop, you might stop this Vista mine, but there's just going to be another one down the road. This thing's happening, folks. And
2 minutes. 2 minutes. Time.
thank you.
My name is Jody Slocum. I live on 130th Street, Downing, and I also will not be directly affected. I'm 5 miles from the mine. I take a lot of offense with that conversation that just happened because, you know, what about my economic future? And what about all the other people that may not be working at this mine, and how are we going to be impacted. So if you're making an economic impact look at this, you have to take everything into account. It's not just these specific jobs for this specific time. After the last meeting, I went up to one of the engineers who expounded on how fabulous this company is. And I said to him, have you worked with these guys? And he said, well, we've been working on these agreements. And I said, so you've never done any project with these guys? And the RJ, you know, nice people, I respect you. They haven't had the company since a year ago, April. We don't have a track record here. We have so much at stake. And number one are the children. Talk about our future. What is the future but our children? And how can you think about doing this by the school? There's just so many concerns. And the scale, you know, to say, well, yeah, things have gone wrong with this, but they fix it and move on. You don't fix something on a scale like this. We've never been faced with something on this scale. How do you fix groundwater when it's been polluted? We need to be doing way more research. We need to be looking into this way for a long, long time. The silica dust, I mean, you could just, it goes on and on and on. So I respect you for being our public employees or our public representatives, and I know this is really difficult, but I see absolutely no reason to say yes to this. We live here. This is our community. Look at the audience. We want to keep it the way it is. Thank you.
My name is Carol Neese. I live in Stanton Township. I agree there's no need to vote tonight if St. Croix County says that they haven't presented a proposal that they can make a decision on, then I think that would be a strong signal that you probably don't have enough information either. The comment about the air monitoring, I'm a chemical engineer. I used to work in air monitoring for Kellogg, which is now Kellogg Brown and Root down in Texas. The major pollution isn't always right on the property. Often it's very far away from the property. It depends on how the wind carries things around and what kind of structures and hills. And so your air monitoring, whoever said it's on property, it was much lower than off property. That's not surprising at all. With regards to the jobs, if somebody came in and wanted to build an auto manufacturing plant here, said they were going to build cars for 20 years and then they were going to go out of business and leave, I think we'd go, you're nuts. And this is jobs for 20 years, which when I was 20 seemed like a long time. As you get older, 20 years of a job doesn't seem like that exciting. You have a job for 20 years and then you're 40 or 50 years old and out in the job market looking for a new job, which isn't a good time to be looking for a new job. I have to mention again the cooperation agreements that they were, I don't know if they're doing that here. In Menominee Township, I think it's great to give a whole pile of money to somebody who's being screwed because you're coming in and you're the neighbor and your property value is dropping. I don't think anybody has any right to buy somebody's freedom of speech. I think that's criminal, and I can't believe that that's legal, that you can buy somebody's freedom of speech. I think that's wrong. All the assurances and reassurances are very nice, but as far as I can tell, they're not binding. So, you know, you can say anything, but what you do, pretty much you just have to have really good laws in place. You have to have really good monitoring in place. Somebody's got to pay for it. Our DNR doesn't have any staffing now, so, you know, great opportunity to come in and steal from us, because we don't have a DNR right now. We chose to live here because it's a beautiful place. If I wanted to live in a mining district and make a lot of money and have like fabulous jobs and stuff, I'd live in the Twin Cities or something where I'd live next to the train yards, you know, because I would love all the noise. But I've moved out here because I love how quiet it is. And even now I live, I don't know, I must be 4 miles from the plant on W, and when I take my little morning walk at 6 in the morning or 7 in the morning, I can hear backup beeps and I can hear a dull roar in the distance. And it's a minor inconvenience. I'm pretty far away, but you know, I live in a beautiful place, not in a mining district. I drove past the mine in New Auburn on 64 on my way to visit the Ice Age Trail, and I didn't even notice it on my way to the Ice Age Trail. So you could visit these places and you don't even see them. There's no dust. It's beautiful. On my way back, as I'm approaching it, there's a sandstorm going across the I mean, it went on forever. I noticed it on my way back. So I really think you shouldn't vote tonight because St. Croix County doesn't have enough information, and I don't think we do either.
I'm Tom Knox, and I live in Glenwood Township. For one thing, the first thing, before the last meeting down at the church, I took a little tour, and I went over to Menominee, and I didn't tour the plant, I just drove by. Well, it's right on the edge of town, and I don't know if I don't hear anybody hollering about it over there. Went to New Auburn, saw the loading facilities. One of them is right in New Auburn. They're obviously putting in a spur and making it bigger. Then I went to Chippewa Falls, and that's, again, right in town. I did talk to some people there, a couple of guys, and I didn't have time to talk anymore, but I talked to a couple of guys that were impressed with the place. One guy said that the jobs were fabulous. A guard at the gate said there just didn't any problem. I think some people need to actually go and talk to them. For one thing, I think we can just let the permit people take care of the permits. They're obviously going to know more about whether or not this is going to work and if it's going to be okay than most of us sitting here. That's their job to check out these permits. If they can't get the permits, it's over. If they get the permits, then I guess we vote. The sewage or the water problem, water table problem, the groundwater problem. I taught school, and I used to take kids down to the sewage plant. You need to go and see how that works and where that water goes. And there's a lot of water going through that sewage plant. It goes right out the west end into the swamp and into the groundwater. We're worried about this place being groundwater, but for some reason we're not worried about our own sewage going into groundwater, evidently. I heard about reforestation and ground being taken out of production, and I just guess that there's more land taken out of production and forestry for housing and horse barn development in this township than this mine is going to take out. There's new businesses. We want new businesses, but in most cases we have to give them a tax break so that they pay no taxes for X number of years. That's not the case here with this one. I got several things. I'm going to forget time. If you do take more time, I'm afraid we're just going to hear the same thing from the same people. It doesn't bother me if you vote when you think you're ready to vote. Some people want the company to guarantee that there'll be no accidents. I'm sure they'd like to guarantee that they won't have an accident on the way home tonight. If the truth be known, probably half of us wouldn't have been born if it hadn't been for an accident.
Well, only Knox could get away with that, as you all know.
My name is Gene Schultz, and it's going to be real hard to follow a comedian. I just don't do that kind of stuff. And please forgive my speech problem. I own property at 1101 County Road W. I do not have any familiarity with any of these other mines that people are talking about. I'm not necessarily sure where this mine is being located, but I've got a lot of familiarity with County Road W mine. I share a quarter-mile property line with it. It's fatiguing. Get ready for it. It's fatiguing. I don't know how you're going to handle 24/6. It's going to be interesting. wish you luck. I'm having a difficult time just handling the 6 to 8 hours that they've got up at the mine now. I think they're almost extreme right now. You're pushing it you're pushing the envelope way past that. I guess the other thing I would like to say is that when the other mine came in and was presenting this, it was over a year ago, okay, so that was the tip of the spear. There's no such thing as air quality understanding at that meeting. So we didn't even know about that. We were just defending groundwater and trying to do our best at that point in time. If you're going to the county level, let me tell you, be very watchful of that process and what they agreed to put in the permit and what actually gets in the signed permit. What they agreed to put in the permit, I found out, means nothing. What they put in the signed permit is the only thing you can hang your hat on. So be very careful before they sign the permit that you have everything in there that you understood was supposed to be in there before they actually do that deed. Thank you.
I'm Chris Shoney. I live just outside of Glenwood City on Highway 128. I've done a lot of research online about this. I've done a lot of reading. I personally have not visited any mines. I've sat through most of the public hearings. I've spoke to a lot of people. I think people in this area just don't know a lot about it. I mean, we're talking about something that's going to go on for 20, 25 years here. And we, the people, know about it for about 4 months. That's a lot of information to cram down in anybody's mind that doesn't normally deal with this on a day-to-day basis. My feeling about it is roughly there's not enough time to make a major decision by anybody's set. I mean, to ask people of this nature on a board to make that kind of a decision over something that's going to reflect for 20 to 25 years is a pretty tough choice to do. I do know that everything that I've read, everything that I've seen online, the property values drop considerably. I personally have seen the trucks, and now we're talking about more trucks. People in this area bought land or chose to live here based upon the area, the topography, the jobs, everything. Nothing major has changed here. We've went into a recession, property values have already dropped, we've already seen it, everybody here has been reflected by it, and now we're talking about more. My view is you got a few people that stand to make good money at this, and the rest of the people are going to see 30 to 40% property values. I don't know if the money coming in, or the subsidies, or any of the small jobs that they're going to offer out are going to benefit and offset that enough. I think that if we look at everything across the board, I would like to see, and I would think most people in this room would like to see, it's good that there's a good turnout. I applaud every one of you for coming in here. It shows concern. I think more people need to speak up. I think more people should get together, and I think we should just ask for a little more time.
My name is Jeff Booth. The land that the proposed site's supposed to be on is the land that I actually grew up on. You know, it's something that was almost happened back in the early 80s. And one thing I see a lot of change in is I thought the same thing you did. I bought land out in the middle of nowheres, and when the farmers passed on, the children sold off 180 acres into 30-acre parcels. So change is somewhat, when I look at things, change is somewhat inevitable. It's going to happen, and it's just unfortunate because that's not really what I wanted to look at. Is 30 houses. If I wanted to look at 30 houses, I could have moved to town. But that whole farm is all developed into residential, and I think the largest parcel is 30 acres. So, you know, so change is really hard for everybody. The ethanol plant, That's exactly 2 miles from my house. We look at it every day. It's not a big deal. We can hear some noise once in a while. We never hear this, never smell it, hardly ever. But it is there, and it does bring jobs to the community. Along with this, as far as how many jobs will come locally, there's been a lot of changes in Glenwood. I can remember when the ski hill was down there in the industrial park. You know, there's a lot of things that have changed. They took that whole hill out and made an industrial park. It was to create jobs. It was to make Glenwood better. Same thing with the sewer, the lagoon. The last pond that was put in on the lagoon was also installed, and all the dirt for that pond come from this same land. So there's good things out there, and I think I hear all the bad things, but I also know that I don't know of anybody personally that too much of anything is bad. Silica sand is probably really bad. It's really probably bad for children, but for adults. And when you see that, when I lived down by Downing, down by Menominee in the Rusk area, whenever the crops were put in, you couldn't live in our house. I mean, you could come home at noon and wipe off the table. I mean, it's just, the sand plants, I toured the Menominee plant also, and like I didn't see any dust there, but I did see the pictures where somebody took pictures that they said did have dust. So I think we just need to be, open, work together. I think it's something to be good for the community. If you take a look at from the west end of town to the east end of town and look at the wages that the people in Glenwood get paid, some say it ain't going to help Glenwood out much. But when you look at, if you get 15 or 20 people get jobs there that get paid then, a fair wage, that them people are going to buy goods here. They're going to spend money here. They're going to help pay our taxes. When I see the tax roll in our Hay River Township, I see the taxes that Hay River gets from the ethanol plant is 6 digits. If we wouldn't have that ethanol plant, let's face it, the state's going to keep cutting money away from the townships, the cities. I mean, they don't have the money to give to us to help us out. So I think it'd be a good benefit to really take a good look at making things work. Thanks.
My name is Bob Huber. I moved out to this area about 8 years ago, and I've loved the area and I've loved the people out here. But anyway, I would urge you to be very careful about this stuff because I've lived in other places. I lived out west of the Twin Cities for a while. I moved out there because I didn't want to drive in rush hour on the freeway out to my job every day, which was out in the suburbs. Well, anyway, over the years, I went to other places, and anyway, the last time I visited that area, a lot of economic development, a lot of businesses, a lot of earth tone houses. But anyway, at the very last minute, about 8 years ago, somebody thought we better put aside maybe a square mile of prairie so that people can remember what used to be here. Anyway, I don't think any of you would want to drive on Highway 5 to get your job anymore. There are drawbacks to all this economic development, and be very careful about them. The laws do not, in general, keep up with changes. This has been demonstrated with the regulation of securities and things. A new financial product called derivatives just about took this country down. And anyway, a lot of people thought it was a wonderful financial thing and no problem with it. But anyway, the regulation did not keep up. When it comes to non-ferrous or non-metallic mining, I don't believe that any of the regulations or standards have kept up. They were for gravel pits that were here 20 years ago and whatever. They do not really apply, in my opinion, to what goes on in a frac sand mine. But anyway, in the words of a singer back in the 70s, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. And anyway, one of the first places I looked at when I moved out this way, I deliberately came to Wisconsin, was a house in the Knapp Valley. And I went down the road Q from the freeway, and I thought this is the most beautiful spot on earth. And I hope that all you people here realize what you have. And be very careful about giving it away. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Annie Lipke. I apologize for us starting and kind of wrapping up both with Lipke's, so I'll make it quick. I grew up in Minnesota. My family was dirt poor. I've known hunger. I've known what it's like for my parents to not have jobs. And, you know, we say, well, it's only 20 years of jobs. When I was a kid, a day of a job was more than enough. And the Lord has blessed me now where I don't have to worry about that, but I know a lot of people still do. And I think, in my own research, the health effects is the only thing that's concerned me. And I've found nothing to say that silica dust is any more dangerous than wood dust, than the sun. It's in the exact same list with cancer.org. You can look it up. Carcinogens. It's the same thing. So if I can do something, or if I can be a part of something that gives jobs to people, I want to be able to do that. Because I think what kills more kids isn't silica dust, it's starvation.
I'm Roger Stansbury. I live in the town of Glenwood. I usually don't speak up too much, but what I do know from hunting all these hills for 70 years, that the sand holds your drinking water. It filters it and replenishes it. It holds it, it drains. You're going to see wells dry. In my opinion, you're going to see seeps dry up. You're going to see your creeks dry up. Especially if this really takes off, because we have sand all around Glenwood City. Thank you.
I'm Annette Olson. I also live in Glenwood Township. I've been listening to a lot of testimony in the last few weeks. Some things that have come to my mind is that we have some honorable gentlemen from a company that have come in here and have offered us some jobs. And I believe that they're honorable because I'm a good judge of character, and I've seen their plans. I know that the Tigans are honorable people as well. One thing that brought me to Glenwood was the fact that it is a beautiful place. This mine will not destroy that it is a beautiful place, because they are going to reclaim that land. They've told you that. 20 acres at a time, they will reclaim it. If you've gone to any other mine, like go up into northern Wisconsin, go to Black River Falls, there's beautiful, beautiful countryside on reclaimed mine land. Now, another reason why I love this place, I bought 80 acres of what I call God's heaven. God gave us this sand. He gave us our brains to do with it what we know we need to take care of our families. That's how we live our lives. Good judgment. Now, we have the natural resources. Let's use them wisely. Another reason why I love being here is because we have in Glenwood no comprehensive planning, which means we have local control, and I appreciate that. And when we lose local control, we lose our property rights. We are property right owners. Tigans have just as much right to their property rights as the rest of us do. If the DNR, which, by the way, I've been hearing for years everybody complain about the DNR, now they're our best friends, and now we don't have them? I mean, really, people, let's use our brains that God gave us and use our natural resources.
Okay, no one else likes to speak. We're going to turn it over to Vista. Okay.
I'm Katie Leonard. I live on the corner of G and 128, and I guess I was just curious. Well, I'll put it right out there. I'm not for the sand mine for obvious reasons of where I live, and I don't want where my children are going to school. Nobody has eased my concerns that they could possibly get sick. They could get sick from this, and from the get-go, I felt just sick in my stomach. Because nobody sends their kids out to possibly get sick. Nobody does it. Just don't. And that was one of my concerns. And I guess my question is, when I attended the Menominee Town Board meeting, and I also spoke to a gentleman that sat on the town board, they had, actually Vista Sands, hired the gentleman from Cedar Corporation to help them with agreements. And I guess questioning you, do you guys have any plans of hiring somebody to help our town with agreements? I mean, I'd like to put blinders on and think, you know, because I'm not for it, but at the same time, what are you guys going to do to help our town? And that is my question. Have you guys thought about hiring anybody to help with agreements?
We'll address it later.
Okay.
Okay. We'll turn it over to Mr. Sykes and Vista Sand. Scott Tigan.
Thank you, Chairman Joe, members of the town board, and everybody in the audience. I appreciate everybody's concerns, and you don't need to hear much more about this from me. I want to turn it over to RJ and his team. But what I will tell you is when we checked Vista Sands out when we went down to Texas, we saw great people. We saw people that are doing it right. And I've told RJ, I said, I want our plant to be as good as the one in Menominee, if not better. And nobody here wants this done right any more than myself, my boys, and all of my neighbors. So with that, I want to turn it over to RJ. Thank you very much.
Perfect, thanks Scott. And Town of Glenwood, we appreciate you having us and giving us time to speak and giving us time for this opportunity. What we'd like to do now is just go through a kind of a very, very abbreviated presentation of kind of what we gave last week at our meeting, informational meeting, and then I've written down a few of the questions, make some comments on some of the questions that have commonly been asked. At any point, if you have questions, please feel free to ask. Stop me and ask, and we'll go from there. A little bit about who Vista is. Vista Sand is owned by three guys, myself and two partners, Gary Humphreys and Marty Robinson. We bought the firm in 2011, April 2011. We employ roughly 82 people as of today through our sand company, and through the trucking side of the operation, we're up to almost 250, somewhere in there. We are located in Crescent, Texas, which is about 25 miles southwest of Fort Worth, in the heart of kind of what we call the Barnett, which is primarily oil, primarily gas at this point, natural gas that is. And we have contracts with different various operators that work there. Our background is in the logistics side of sand, and now on the mining side of sand. We've handled sand since 2005. We have transloading operations primarily in Oklahoma and Texas, a couple in Louisiana, one in New Mexico. That's kind of our primary area of operation. We try to pride ourselves on doing the right thing, the right way, for the right reasons. And I think our track record and the various ventures we have has shown that throughout. So a little bit about what we're trying to do here in Glenwood City. The site is about 500 acres. It is between 128, kind of east of 128, south of G, kind of in that area. I think everybody kind of has a pretty good idea where it's at. Based on the facility that we'd like to put in, we have roughly a 25-year reserve. The idea is that we would mine the sand, wash the sand, let the sand dry, and then from there, naturally dry, and then from there put it in a truck it to Menominee, put it in a rail car, and then rail it to Texas to where then we have a dry plant that we would then finish processing that sand. Lots of advantages for doing that. A lot of the advantages are we get higher utilization on our rail cars, we get higher utilization of our storage facilities because we can store the sand outside because it hadn't been finally dried and screened. So we can rail a lot of sand, we can operate our facility in Texas 12 months out of the year as opposed to a facility up here where we'd only be able to potentially operate 8 to 9 months based on weather conditions. So it gives us a lot of flexibility. We plan on operating the facility 8 to 9 months. Rule of thumb is once it gets below freezing continually, meaning even if at night it goes below freezing, then the day it goes above freezing, you can still operate. Once it goes below freezing continually, at that point you're better off shutting down as you get a lot of ice built up on your belts and freezes your pumps and other things of that nature that get very, very expensive very, very fast. Through the mining site, we'll talk about this in a little while. I've got a couple of consultants here from SEH that will talk about all the different regulations that we have to go through to get to final permits so that we can actually operate, and they'll go through kind of who does what and the different regulations that are put upon us. We will comply with all the state, federal, county, and township rules and regs, ordinances, testing. We will comply with all those. In most cases, we've gone above and beyond anything that's been required. A portion of the site will be, the majority of the site will be regulated by MSHA. MSHA regulates all active operations. They work primarily for safety, health. That's kind of their main thing. Dedicated specifically to mining, so these guys are not green. These guys are guys that deal with mining every day, all day. They will regulate our site. They're required every year to do at least 2 visits to where they'll come out for anywhere from 2 to 5 days and review every piece of the plan, from looking at tests to taking tests to looking at air quality to looking at safety guards on all the different machinery, making sure that it is a safe work environment and a safe environment as a whole. We are asking, let's see, the primary operation of the plant will be to mine the sand. From the mining, we'll then wash the sand. We use water at high pressures with attrition scrubbers. Attrition's like dough being kneaded together. Take the sand, with high pressure, we beat the sand up against each other. Does not change the roundness, the viscosity, or anything of the sand. All it does is mainly break it up and gets all the clay and the foreign objects out of the sand. Once we washed it, all the water is reclaimed and it's in a closed loop system. All of our ponds are lined and are monitored regularly. Unlike a lot of the other ponds that we've heard about, ours are not above ground, they're inset, so that the opportunity for a berm breaking or things like that is very, very minimized based on the way that we have the site set up. We have a little bit of advantage in the fact that we're starting fresh. We're not trying to adapt something else. We get the fresh start at this. Based on the public comments, we've gone back and moved some of our stockpiles of sand where we propose to put them to try to eliminate some of the concerns for dust, some of the view concerns, and things of that nature. So we voluntarily, working with St. Croix County, we are in the process of amending our permit and resubmitting it to take into effect a lot of the comments that we received from the public. We will use trees and berms did want to put that out there. Just a real quick, this is a rough idea of what the site will look like. It's kind of in a 3D, but this is County Road G. You have a berm here, some open space, and then you've got some trees that shield some of our stockpiles of sand with a plant sitting back in here. Really rough idea. So from a mining operation, primarily what we do is there's some overburden on the site. We'll have to move the overburden. A lot of the initial overburden will be used for the berms. We'll take that soil. It's saved in kind of the topsoil, and there's like a Horizon B soil, and then all other materials after that. So each of those are stockpiled separately so that we can use that later for the reclamation process. Just to give you a rough idea, here's what the site looks like, kind of in general, kind of where we've moved the ponds, where the plant would sit, just kind of a general layout of how the mining would progress. We've got numbers on here to kind of give you an idea of where the mining would take place going forward. St. Croix County has a very strict ordinance on mining. At no given time can we have more than 20 acres open. My understanding is the bond is roughly, I think it's between 10 and 30,000 an acre, something like that. Per open acre is what they require in a bond. My understanding historically has been roughly 20,000 an acre. So if we have a 20-acre pit, then we would be required to put up roughly 400,000, 20,000 per acre, which would ensure that if anything catastrophic happened, that there would be money set aside specifically to reclaim the site. From our standpoint, we're primarily we're strip mining, so we're taking the overburden off and then using excavators. We're using excavators, loaders, some haul trucks to pull the sand out of the ground, and then use that sand from the mine to go to the second process, which is the wash process. The washing process entails of, it's roughly a $16 million facility. That's just primarily for the equipment, the pumps. Does not include any of the what I'm going to call yellow iron, which is your excavators, your loaders, your bulldozer, any of that type of equipment. This is primarily just to install the structure, have your hydrosizers, your different pumps, your cyclones, dewatering screens. That's what this $16 million entails. We anticipate it's going to cost us another $5 million in site work and in infrastructure, meaning we've got to put in scales, we've got to put in internal roads, we've got to move the initial overburden. By moving the stockpiles and the ponds from where we previously had them is over an additional $1 million of site work that we've committed to doing, primarily because we do believe it is the right thing. I think it'll hopefully alleviate brain damage for everybody, the fact that because it's farther away, if there was any dust that would blow, we have much better shielding with natural berms and trees. In both the mining and the washing operation, we're asking for 24 hours, 6 days a week. Again, that'll be roughly 8 to 9 months, weather depending. Primarily the goal in this case of the wet plant is to take the finer material out of the sand. So to clean it, so take the clay, the debris, the rocks, to remove all that, but as well as primarily we're looking for a plus 50 product, which 50 is it's 50 openings per square inch. So we're primarily hunting the the sand that would go through a 20 mesh screen but retain on a 50 mesh screen, which means roughly 60% of the sand that we mine will be used and taken off-site, and the other 35 to 40% will be used in the reclamation process. There will be no drying on site, other than natural occurring drying, meaning once it's stockpiled, water, when it comes off the dewatering screens, will come off anywhere from 11 to 13%, roughly 12%. The idea is that in roughly 72 hours, that sand will reduce in that 11 to 12% moisture, somewhere around 5 to 6 going forward. From there, once we have the sand, it's roughly in that 6% moisture range. We'd like to put it in a truck. From in the truck, we're asking that we be given the same hours that we've committed to in Menominee, and in Menominee granted. The town of Menominee, that is, we would start at 5 a.m. on Monday and terminate Saturday at 8 p.m. and limit, so we wouldn't have any trucks leaving the sites during the bus hours that we've committed to, which is roughly it's either 3.5 to 4 hours a day, 2 hours in the morning and roughly 1.5 hours, 2 hours in the afternoon during school times. We have committed to purchasing a fleet of CNG vehicles. CNG is compressed natural gas. They operate, some say, as much as 60% more efficient than diesel vehicles. There's advantages, there's disadvantages. It costs a lot more. The range on the truck is a lot less, meaning you can only put fuel in a CNG vehicle for somewhere between 400 and 450 miles as far as range. Diesel trucks, you get significantly more than that. It does take a little bit longer to refuel. However, on the flip side, it is cleaner. It's much quieter from the stuff that we've seen so far and the test companies that we've been able to observe. We have done fairly significant research just as far as what do the drivers that currently drive them, what do they think, what are their opinions, what are the companies that operate them as far as maintenance. Most of the vehicles that are out there, especially in the Class 7, Class 8, which is what we'd be looking at purchasing, which is more of the typical semi that you see running up and down the road. Most of them have only been out 3 to 4 years, so as far as the maintenance, it's still jury's still a little bit out on that. We will comply with all of the DOT regulations. We are actively working with the DOT as far as trucking route. This is our proposed route. For the most part, it is all right-hand turns. The young woman that spoke earlier about the left-hand turn right here at 12 and 128 is correct. We would have to make a left-hand turn there empty. The truck would be empty to go back and refuel. It would be the only left-hand turn on the side or on the route. We do believe it's safer. There's a lot of insurance studies out there, which is what we go by, and they've all said that right-hand turns are much more less likely to have an accident than trying to run left-hand turns or go a different route. As far as the route, we are open to whatever is dictated. At this point, we've proposed it. We've talked to Wisconsin DOT is still reviewing it. We've actively talked to St. Croix County about County Road G. And we're still actively having dialogue with them on on that roughly 2-mile stretch of road. And then we've worked with the town of Menominee on the section of 330th that we'll be using in Menominee. Excuse me. We've agreed to no jake braking, and we would carry that throughout. We also have GPS and speed trackers on all of our trucks. We've put that pretty much for our insurance and for us. We don't want any accidents just like you do. We have that set up such that if anybody goes above the speed limit, it automatically flags it, sends emails to the appropriate personnel, and then we use those for coaching experiences. As far as jobs, talk real briefly about that. Our cost is roughly $25 a ton loaded in a rail car. That includes the mining process, sending it through the wet plant. From there, includes the trucking back to Menominee. And then there's a minimal cost or some cost associated with loading that sand into a rail car. Based on what we've seen, these are kind of the numbers that we currently pay, pretty close to this. In some cases, we even pay more than that. We want to be a little bit on the conservative side. Direct impact to jobs is somewhere around 2.4, 2.5 million before bonuses, and And then that would not include any of the trucking jobs that would be created, which in this case would be somewhere in that 60 to 80 jobs in additional to, I think we're showing 50 here, 53. We would, based on the requested hours, we're requesting the 5 a.m. to Saturday at 8 p.m. based on those hours. On the turn times, based on how fast we can load them and unload them, and use up both sites efficiently, we'd be roughly 33 trucks. With each of those trucks, you need at least 2 drivers, and then you need management to manage the drivers plus some fill-in drivers for other things, sick time, guys just be off, those type of activities. That's kind of where I left it from the last meeting. That's kind of the abridged version. What we'd like to do is, if you don't mind, I'm going to have SEH talk quickly about just a couple of issues. A, mainly the regulation. B, maybe Daryl can address some of the groundwater concerns. And then after that, I'd like to have like 3 or 4 more comments and then move back to it. This is Daryl Reed and Phil Newman. They work for SEH, and we have hired them as our consultants for this project.
Question, Matthew?
I'm sorry, I can't take questions right now. I was instructed to take questions from the board, so I'm sorry. One second.
Okay, thank you for letting us present tonight. We're going to focus mainly on the regulatory issues. This is a highly regulated industry. Sand mining has been going on in Wisconsin for over 40 years. The Badger mine operation down in Taylor, Wisconsin has been operating for over 40 years. There's been a big influx of sand industry over the past 3 to 4 years. One of the key components in the regulatory issues is submittal of the reclamation plan. It's actually under Chapter NR 135, Wisconsin Administrative Code. If you want to Google that up, you can take an actual look at the NR 135 code and the requirements that the reclamation plan requires. St. Croix County also has the ordinance that RJ mentioned, very restrictive. So St. Croix County actually administers NR 135. Air regulations are administered under or regulated under NR 415, Wisconsin Administrative Code. There's a permit is reviewed. It is submitted to the DNR. It is reviewed down in Madison by air specialists in the Central District of the DNR. Extensive permit, one of the very technically oriented permits that have to be submitted. The conditions imposed will be complied with. You have to comply with the air permit approvals. The mine site is not a dry plant on the site that was talked about earlier. It is a mine site and a wet plant site. The wet plant is going to remove the fines that RJ talked about. And in this deposit, let me just say the Jordan sandstone, which is being mined, has a very low clay content. It's over 90% sand in most instances based on our sieve results. So it's a clean sand to begin with. Groundwater. Groundwater is Wisconsin's most valuable resource. That's what the DNR tells us. And there's extensive regulations on groundwater. Well construction, private wells, municipal wells, high capacity irrigation, non-industrial wells. These all have to be permitted. They all have to be approved by the DNR. Going to develop a groundwater monitoring network. Some of these issues that have been brought out by the people in Downing, where you have shallow wells. We're going to have to put in some wells between that mine site and your wells in order to monitor what's going on. See if there's a change in water levels. See if there's a change in water quality. We want to be able to see those changes before they get to your wells, so we can address them if needed. Okay? We're in a drought condition right now, a local drought condition. We want to see what's going on with that water table right now.
okay, before the mine even starts. Okay, so it's very important. We need data. All this permit process is based on data and data interpretation, and we're required to report it to the DNR. If it goes to the DNR, it's public information. There's nothing being hid here. Okay, reporting, annual reporting is a requirement. And there'll be no mining into the water table. It's a dry mine. That's why we're going to put these monitoring wells in to make sure we know where that water level is in that mining area so we don't get too close to it. There'll be sand there. Okay? There'll be sand to filter down into the water table. Okay? So it's not a wet mine. High capacity well permit. They're gonna need hundreds of gallons of water for certain processes. We may need, well, we'll have to submit a high capacity well permit that's reviewed by the DNR down in Madison. And that will have to be approved. The high capacity aquifer in Glenwood City, in your municipal well, the well is over 500 feet deep. I saw in the test of that well, it was over 1,000 gallons per minute. They're not going to want to produce 1,000 gallons per minute, but they're going to want to be able to produce hundreds of gallons per minute, 500, 700. Just want to emphasize that that is not continually pumping. They're going to have ponds on site that they're going to draw waters from in their wet process operation. It's not going to be flowing over the ground. It's not going to be flowing down gullies or anything. They want a closed system on their water resource. Okay, so the importance in having that capability of producing 500 gallons per minute is very important in dust suppression. When they pull their water truck up to get it filled, they don't want to wait 12 hours to wait for that truck to get filled. They want to be able to address that dust problem right off the get-go. You turn on that tap, 500 gallons per minute, that truck's going to fill up pretty darn quick. You're going to get water on your dust problems, on your roads and stuff. So it's very important. And again, it's not constantly pumping. Once those ponds are filled, they're going to be drawing water from the ponds. And the makeup water, stuff that's lost through evaporation, they're going to keep that pond level full so it doesn't dry out. That's the importance of the high cap well. Turn it over to Phil Newman.
Thanks. As far as stormwater, that's also, stormwater permits are required. Those are Wisconsin DNR permits in accordance with Wisconsin Administrative Code NR 151 and NR 216. We'll prepare and submit for approval a non-metallic mine notice of intent for stormwater discharges. In addition, there'll be a stormwater pollution prevention plan that will cover the operation of the wet plant as it goes on. There are some wetlands on the site. We're going to be meeting with we have delineated those wetlands. We will be meeting with the Wisconsin DNR and U.S. Army Corps to review those wetlands. There may be a slight impact on one of them that will be reviewed with those, and if so, we will be applying for the proper permit through the Wisconsin DNR. Transportation, RJ touched on this. Ongoing coordination with the Wisconsin DOT and St. Croix County. As far as the routes that were selected, those are, majority of them are the state and U.S. routes, which are designed for this volume of truck traffic and these loads. And RJ is working with the county on improvements to County Trunk G to upgrade that. Trucks, again, they will be covered related to the dust issues. RJ also mentioned day-to-day operations and safety. Those are covered by MSHA, Mine Safety and Health Administration. We mentioned the rigorous inspections, twice a year. Those guys are going to show up and very thorough and very rigorous inspection. That's a brief summary of the regulations and the permits that we will be submitting.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Just a couple of quick follow-ups to the questions and things that were asked. One of them was asked about the school. After our public meeting on the 2nd, we took it upon ourselves to meet with the school administration, the school board. We did a follow-up meeting with them specifically on Tuesday. We listened to their concerns and came out of the meeting, I thought was very positive. We came out of the meeting with, Vista Sand will be open to allowing them to use their existing environmental consultant to put a plan in place to determine if there was harmful dust at the school. They can choose the time periods, they can put the plan together, and we agreed that we would pay the cost for that monitoring within reason. We agreed that we would sit down, agree on a plan, allow them to use their third-party consultant, and go from there. So I did feel like that was a fairly, very, very positive meeting to address some of the concerns with some of the different individuals with their schools and their kids. The other thing I want to point out is, for the most part, we are all on state highways, with the exception of County Road G and 330th, which we have agreed to pay the incremental cost or the cost to upgrade those roads and or redo the roads. We are on state highways. In our conversation with DOT, they've been very, very, I guess, overly, you guys are doing the right thing, you guys are using state highways, that's what they were designed for. They're designed for commercial use, and so we're glad to see that you guys are actually using them. As far as dust suppression, we do plan on putting in a system, several different things. We do plan on putting in a system that would take water and water the tops of the piles. By doing that, that would alleviate a lot of the dust from blowing from the open piles. And then number two, our facilities do have water trucks. They do spray the roads fairly regularly just to minimize dust. That would, most of the dust that's going to come up is going to come up from the truck traffic internal on the sites that, on our internal roads. And any of that sand that would get on the tires and then be taken onto our internal road before it hit the County Road G. We do use water trucks to both clean the roads and then to keep those wet and moist so that that sand wouldn't blow. Try to minimize dust as much as possible. I do feel like, we've gone above board. We've been very, very much above board, and I do feel like we're trying to do the right thing. At every turn, we've tried to do the best possible solution, and I think we've tried to listen to public comments, and where we can, we've tried to address those and or take proactive steps in making that positive. As part of that process, we did pull our permit on Friday. We pulled it so that we could drill 2 or 3 groundwater wells that we could then use for monitoring. That was based primarily on conversations that our consultants and engineers had with the St. Croix County staff, and we are officially waiting all the comments, but we will address all those comments in an amended version that will be submitted hopefully in the next week to 2, depending on what the comments look like. At the same time, we will address us moving the stockpiles, because in our reclamation plan we had the stockpiles much closer to the roads. Based on the public comment, we moved those to where they are now. So there's some small tweaking just kind of in that process to show that the stockpiles have moved, where the berms are. We've given up some reserves. We've added significant costs to the project, at least in the site work initially, and we will add all those into our reclamation plan. My understanding is we're still going to ask for a vote tonight. We still have to go through the Board of Adjustments, and the tweaks that we're making on our reclamation plan are all because of regulations. It's to further comply with St. Croix County's ordinance, just to give them more information, put baselines together so that we will have more information, as Daryl spoke earlier, we'll have more information to be able to judge on a go-forward basis kind of what the standard is that we need to upkeep. So we are asking, to kind of recap, we're asking for 24/6 on the mining, 24/6 on the wash operation, and then 5 a.m. Monday to 8 p.m. Saturday on the trucking. We've asked that it would be passed on favorably to the Board of Adjustments, which we will. We will not meet with the Board of Adjustments in July. It will be put on their August meeting. And so we ask that the town of Glenwood give us a favorable recommendation going forward. And if there's any questions, I can answer those at this time.
Thank you. Don't run away. When you were talking about the school and a third-party consultant, the school has someone now.
So out of that meeting came that the school board let us know that they had hired a fairly large engineering firm to do remedial work for them. They had some asbestos problems, and primarily I think in the flooring and the asbestos tiles. And so they put out a bid, they hired a fairly, I think one of the larger firms, and they were very happy with them. And my understanding is they also do air monitoring and things of that nature. And so I recommended, or we kind of collectively recommended, that since they already had a comfort level with their existing engineers, that they reach out to their engineers and say, hey, what would you got? If you're in our shoes as a board, what do we need to do to protect the kids, make sure there's no issues, make sure that we're not putting them in harm's way? Could you put a plan together for us, and then a proposal of what that plan would cost to implement? And we are waiting those results as we speak.
So you withdrew the permit to amend it, to change it, to drill the monitoring wells at this time, or to have that included in the permit process, that you would drill monitoring wells, and also that you're going to move the stockpiles. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And the only third one would be any other comments from the staff at St. Croix. We'd address any of their concerns.
Okay.
So any other concerns, we're anticipating those any day.
Okay.
Any other concerns they have, we would address it. They're the regulatory body responsible for that permit, so any other concerns that they have, we'd address it at that time.
Okay. Any questions?
RJ, I assume that MSHA is a partner of OSHA, or is the government's OSHA except for mine?
That's correct.
So MSHA is, I just wanted to clarify that. And then another question that I've been asked is, what about other natural resources that you will be disturbing or moving the lime rock? Right across the valley, there's a huge limestone pit, and I assume that it's in those hills also. Obviously there's some monetary value to that. What is the plan to do with the lime rock?
Great question. As far as some of the overburden lime rock, some of the other, that's not our core business. If there's a group that would like to buy it with the mineral owner's approval, then we would sell that. Otherwise, we use it all in the reclamation process. But since it's not our core business, we're not going to try to do anything special with that. We're going to put in a special plan or do anything with that from that standpoint going forward.
My question is, the 20 acres, is it once it's reclaimed, then you start another 20 acres, or are you cutting trees and removing dirt while you're still mining?
Again, a great question. More than likely, the way it works, we're still formulating the actual mining plan. That's kind of next, but historically, you're mining roughly 10 acres. If you have 20 acres to work with, there'll be 5 acres that we're reclaiming, 10 acres that we're actively mining, and then 5 acres that we're preparing to mine, meaning stripping the overburden. So it's kind of like a layered system, so that you're constantly moving the layer over. It's a benching system, so you're constantly moving the bench. And it's not, because we couldn't just mine 20 acres, we would be without sand while we have to reclaim that, and that's just not effective. So we really only want to touch the material once. So the idea is the stuff that we're reclaiming, you know, a lot of that material that we're pulling off the overburden, we can use that for reclamation and just continue moving forward.
This might be a question for Mr. Blackburn. Is he still here? Yep. When the county talks about having 20 acres, that would not include the wash plant or the stockpiles or the ponds?
Right, typically the 20 acres is the actively mined area, part where they're processing or running the trucks, and that's not.
Okay, okay, so it'd be 20 acres in addition to the area that's covered by the wash plant, the ponds and the stockpiles?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
That's my understanding as well. That's my understanding as well. Yeah. Okay.
Any questions? This is going to be worse than Paul Harvey because there's several pages here that I'm going to try to page through and I actually started studying this last fall, and I brought it up to the town board months ago and said we were probably going to find frac sand in the town of Glenwood. So, you know, how are we going to deal with this? What are we going to do? So that was one of the confusions that we had. Was I didn't know about the Tigan project until I went to the Menominee meeting, and then I talked to Scott Tigan the next day. So it wasn't that I'd been talking to Scott Tigan for months. I just brought it up as a generality. There was some monitoring drilling that was done last fall on another part of the township, on the northern part of the township, and that's kind of what spurred my interest. So, I'll apologize up front because when you spend that much time researching these things and looking at them, sometimes I begin to assume things. And one of the questions that came up at one of the meetings was that silica is actually a 660 grade fineness. So these guys will be mining 20 to 50, where it's 20 to 50 squares per inch. Silica is 660, and again, that will never be taken out of solution or dried down. It'll stay in a natural form. It'll come through the wash plant. I've toured several plants. I've toured the trucking companies. I've toured mines. I went to Ladysmith where they did the reclamation, and I talked to several people up there. That mine went on for 20-some years. I think it was gold and silver and that type of thing that was mined up there. I talked to a lady that literally lives less than 100 yards. She was probably in her 80s. She lived there the entire time that it was mined, or that the mine was running. So I tried to get a lot of information to put my mind at ease. Is this the right thing to do for the township? Is it the wrong thing to do for the township? Economic impact, they're talking 110 to 120 jobs, a $4 million payroll. If you take that $4 million and you can roll that 3 times on an economy, that's a $12 million impact with food, housing, taxes, etc., etc. In addition to that, Mr. Sykes talked about $25 per ton to get that to the rail. You take off the payroll, you come up with another $21 million, You can't roll that times 3, you should roll that times about 2.25, 2.5. So there's another 53 million. It literally has an impact of a $65 million annual impact in the local area. From a township standpoint, one of the ladies asked last week if I was talking as town chairman or if I was talking, this is all public information. If anybody ever comes to an annual meeting, this is information that you would have. The township has a valuation of about $60 million. And so this plant would add about 20 million to it. So it would increase our valuation. Plus, you're taking it from ag land, rec land, recreation land to commercial land. So the tax is extremely different on that. We are not able to increase our levy as a town board. This could take an hour and a half just to explain, but what happens is the state gives us a figure, we have to back into it, and we take this 60 million and divide it up and levy to get the taxes to pay basically what is levied to us by the county, by the state, by the schools, for our own local use, etc. So basically what this would do is lower the taxes to the town residents in the area of 25 to 35% is what it would lower the taxes of the township residents. Water impact. This is probably one of the areas that is most sensitive to me. I've done 9 mission trips to Haiti, Honduras, Nicaragua, and there's a child that dies every 15 seconds in the world from drinking dirty water. Okay? So in April, I just did my 49th well. I work on fixing wells, drilling wells, that type of thing in foreign countries. I just did my 49th well. Water quality is by far, to me, one of the most important things that a person needs for survival. You know, doctors go down, they help them with this or that or whatever, but really water is one of the most important things that we have. The high capacity well will go into the aquifer, and the gentleman from SEH explained it pretty clearly last week. Most of our wells are in the upper, the shallow wells. They're not high capacity wells, which goes down into the aquifer. I think it's very, very important that we monitor these. We are in a drought condition, and by no means can we be affecting everybody's well out here that we have. I was happy to see that they're going to work in 20 feet above the water table. I am very concerned about the lagoon that we have in Glenwood City. I own the land just west of the lagoon, and if we try to dig a post hole, you get down 2 to 3 feet and the post hole fills up with water. So that lagoon should literally be in the water table. I'm not trying to throw the city council under the bus, but it is by far a major concern here, and yet we don't hear a lot about that. Dust next to the school, that again is one of my very big concerns. I'll have 6 grandchildren in this school next year, so it's not that, you know, everybody in this room is affected by this one way or another. I've toured these plants. I've gone to a lot of different places. I've read everything that I possibly can. The very fact that this is going to stay in a wet form, it's never put into a dry form, I think is a huge advantage. Yet I've toured the Menominee plant, and there is no dust there. And M. Shaw, years ago, we have a dairy farm, and years ago regulations by the Department of Ag, Trade and Consumer Protection got more strict all the time. At first, you can be intimidated by it, you can be upset about it or whatever. In the long run, what it did is it made people produce a higher quality dairy product at the end. We produce a higher quality than we've ever have in the past. From what I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of different mining people, M. Shaw, we have the state, federal, or milk inspectors, and we also have federal milk inspectors. When a federal milk inspector shows up, you better have everything absolutely perfect, or they're going to just simply shut you off. From what the people that I have talked to, I think M. Shaw makes the federal milk inspectors look pretty friendly. A lot of these people they want to do it right, but M. Shaw makes sure that they do it right. And I think that's a huge part. Trucking impact, again, that's anybody who's near the route, on the route, travels the route. If you take, this is just my number crunching, okay? If you take 1 million tons per year, which is the projection that Vista is talking about, and they run for 8 months, 34 weeks, and there's 25 tons per load, that's 40,000 loads. It's 1,176 loads per week, okay? And that, Mr. Sykes has asked for operating hours from 5 a.m. Monday to 8 p.m. Saturday. If you take those 1,176 loads per week and divide it out, it comes to 8.7 loads per hour, okay? It's not a load every 30 seconds, it's not a load every 90 seconds, it's 8.7 loads per hour. If you go to the ethanol plant, they grind 50,000 bushel of corn per day, and a semi-truck holds 1,000 bushel. So they're grinding 50 loads of sand per day. So they run 10-hour days, 5 days a week. So they are running 5 loads per hour, okay? So if you sit down by the ethanol plant and watch, there's 5 loads of corn coming in on an average per hour. The sand would be 8.7. Now, that does not include the ethanol that's being trucked out, or it does not include the distiller's grains that is being trucked out. And I should have done some more research on that, and I didn't. But I don't know if it's going to double it, because some of it goes out on rail, so I don't know. But it's going to increase the truck traffic significantly. Here's the comments. Interesting enough, in the last 6 weeks, I've had 2 people that have come to me that were opposed to the sand mine. And I have had dozens, there's 800 and just shy of 900 residents in the town of Glenwood. I have had dozens of town residents come to me and say that they were in favor of it. Both from jobs, business, revenue. When I was in school, that was in the last century, there was about 1,100 and some kids in the school, and now we're about half that. And next year there were 78 kids in our graduating class. and now next year it's about half that. It's very, very difficult to run. I was on the school board for 12 years. It's very, very difficult to run a school when you're not getting state aids from kids being there. If you've ever farmed, you need to have the barn full of cows, okay? So this will eventually have a big impact on the school, have a big impact on the tax base. Crosby's and Tigans have said they give 10% up front. That's a huge pile of money to come into Glenwood area in a 25-year period. Mr. Sykes also told me that he will also be helping with some of those things and making contributions to local areas. That's a big thing. Residents have all expressed a concern with dust. They've all expressed a concern with water quality. But truck traffic is by far one of the biggest things. I had several people ask me if there was any monitoring on the sawdust plant that is less than 100 yards from the school, right west of the school. We have dust from that. We also have emissions from the smokestack. We have noise from that. And I've had several people ask if the body shops, the two body shops across the road, are monitoring the air quality from there, from using paints and sand, etc., etc. Trees was one of the questions that came up. And if you look 100 years ago, when the logging was big, when Downing was a lot bigger than Glenwood, and Glenwood's a lot bigger than it is now, this whole area was clear cut. They cut everything down and logged it and used it. I remember as a kid, a lot of these hills were bare because everything was pastured, and now a lot of these hills have trees on them. The hill just south of Glenwood, they always used to put white rocks on it with the class of whatever it was, and now it's completely covered with trees. So to me, that's one of the cycles. I've seen some of the reclamations. Reclamation to farmland to me is by far one of our biggest advantages here. We're not putting it into something else. I've seen it. I know there's people that don't agree with it, but I've seen it, and it's very, very productive farmland if it's done right. And that goes back to the same thing, if it's done right. The air quality, the water quality, the reclamation, the truck traffic. I've seen truck traffic done right, and I've seen truck traffic done very, very poorly. I've seen mines that have been done right, and I've seen mines that have been done poorly. And so I have spent numerous hours talking with Mr. Sykes and some of the people that he works with, just because I took it upon myself to try to answer a lot of these questions. I have the economic impact of frac sand mining. It came out from Wood County. That's pretty interesting. One of the gals asked about if we were going to hire Cedar Court to help us with a contract. We are not. We are under St. Croix County zoning, so we will not actually be drawing a contract. Whatever we decide, our decision will be a recommendation to the County Board of Adjustments. The Board of Adjustments is the one that will do the permitting, and they're the ones that will say, is the dust in monitoring in control? Is the water quality in control? Is the truck traffic in control? they're really the overseer of this whole thing. It's not the town board. So we are simply a recommendation of one way or another to them. I've dealt a lot with Alex Blackburn. We have not always agreed. I'm really glad that they're there right now because St. Croix County zoning can be one of the strictest, and no matter who you talk to. I've been to several other counties and I've gone to zoning just to talk to them, just to get their pulse and see. St. Croix County is strict. If you look at their non-metallic mining ordinance, it's very, very strict. It's very comprehensive. And they can also put a lot of these things into this permitting. So I'm very thankful that we have St. Croix County zoning and Board of Adjustments because they're the ones that are going to do the permitting in the end, okay? So that is why we do not have to hire somebody to help us with drafting a contract or anything else. We have several recommendations that we've talked about that we're going to list off. Do you guys have any questions or comments before?
RJ, you said that permit process has been delayed, so you could amend the permit to include the 3, 4, however many monitoring wells you're putting in place. What about the current neighboring wells that surround the proposed mining area? Do you have plans to offer tests so there's a standard for those wells also, or are you strictly relying on the 3 monitoring wells that you'll be drilling?
A big reason for for us drilling our own wells is so that we can monitor a lot of that and try to gather a lot of information now. But we would be open. I mean, that's going to really fall on St. Croix County and our consultants to work together to figure out the best plan. I mean, unfortunately, I can't sit here and tell you this is exactly what we would do. I think that's going to require the experts to get together and figure out exactly how they plan on ensuring that both from water level and water quality that those are met. But yes, long and short of it, yes, we will do whatever is required. And, again, we plan on doing the right thing. That's what we've tried to do, and we'll continue to try to do that and make sure that we'll take the high road, so whatever that is, even if it's more money. Just like all these additional wells are not cheap, so we take it upon ourselves to make sure that happens.
One thing that we've talked about a little bit, and we need to pursue this avenue a little bit, and this is not going to deal with St. Croix County at all, is if we raise our valuation from 60 to 80 million in the township of Glenwood, can we get a variance from Scott Walker to be able to leave our taxes the same and increase our budget? As you will know, a major proportion of our roads are not even paved in the town of Glenwood, and so I guess that's an avenue that we will probably take a look at, talking to the state of Wisconsin DOT or Department of Revenue or Scott Walker or whatever it is, about doing that. So the conditions that we were looking at, or I guess I would propose, I'll put it in the proposal of a motion, is to recommend approval of the Tigan-Crosby sand mine to the Board of Adjustments with the following conditions. Number 1 condition would be to have a third party to monitor dust at the school. I won't speed through this so you can keep up. Okay. Second condition is the monitoring wells, which Vista has addressed tonight. That Board of Adjustments take a look at the monitoring the wells, the local wells. The third item is really, this is it's probably not a condition of the permitting, but looking at putting a tax on, or a permitting fee, an annual permitting fee on high capacity wells put on by St. Croix County. I know Dunn County is looking at that, and other counties have it. This would not include current high capacity wells, but any future high capacity wells in St. Croix County. Glenwood Township is obviously going to incur some costs, etc., and we are going to ask Vista Sand for a 2.5 cent tax per ton of sand. $2.50. Yep, 2.5 cents. Mining hours. The trucking, they have asked from Monday at 5 a.m. to Saturday at 8 p.m. And we are going to concur with that. But we're going to ask that Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. they use the Downing-Boyceville route. From 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and Saturday they use 12 and 128 and not go through Downing or Boyceville. And that a roundabout be installed at the intersection of 12 and 128 because of it's considered the most dangerous intersection in St. Croix County. And roundabouts have proved to be very functional and safe. Wash plant, they've asked for 24/6. We would go along with that recommendation. Mining hours, they've asked for 24/6. And our recommendation would be that it would be Monday through Friday, 14 hours. And Saturday, 12 hours. Board of Adjustments, St. Croix County and Vista work with adjoining landowners to compensate for decreased property values. The permit with St. Croix County is an annual review, and we would like a town representative to be on the committee of the annual review. I so move. Is there a second?
Chairman, I have to recuse myself from the voting. I have asked the chairman to recuse myself from the voting. I've been challenged by a lot of township people because my land borders the mine site. I've had no affiliation with them whatsoever, but for my best interest and interest of the town board, I will recuse from the voting.
I'm going to second it.
There's a motion and a second on the floor that we recommend approval of the Tygan Crosby sand mine to the St. Croix County Board of Adjustments with the conditions as listed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I abstain.
Okay, motion carries. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn. I'll second.
Thank you.
That's fine. I got it.